Today I'm going to talk about how to stop the chase. Either if you are a twin flame chaser or maybe you are an empath slash codependent. And I can give you some guidance because I have actually went through exactly the same struggle. And I'm going to go through 6 topics today. First of all, I'm going to explain what's the similarity between the chaser and the empath. Then I'm going to explain your internal experiences to identify yourself. Then I'm also going to explain how you are different from the runner or the narcissistic person. And after that, I'm going to explain the big difference in a separate part of a head-based person, and that's going to be a more narcissistic person or a more body-based person. And after that, I'm going to explain how to integrate this. And at the very end, I'm also going to explain the internal experiences of a narcissistic person or a runner and a codependent empathic person, or we can call it the chaser. And I'm not a psychologist, but I did a lot of research and I have actually went through these 3 very different versions. So I went through a lot of inner development. I actually started, I'm going to say traits, because there is the personality disorder and there is someone who is with traits, and that's very different. So I went from a covert narcissistic person who also can feel as an empath, by the way. So I'm going to talk about that. That's why many empaths are questioning themselves. And look, we are all mixed in everything. Then I went into a more grandiose narcissism, and after that I actually got pulled into this codependent part of the nervous system. So let's get into it. So in the first part, I'm going to explain how empaths, codependents, and the twin flame chasers are actually similar. And it boils down to a very, very crucial thing, and it's actually your attachment system. You're more connected to your body and you're overly focused on others. And that's where the 2 different empaths are actually coming into play. The first one is going to be who is going to be more codependent and more impulsive and more body-based, and really focuses on one person and hyper focused on the relationship. But I will be honest, you won't know unless you went through this development and you are both. That's why many times when you read an explanation, you won't know because you cannot compare it internally. And then the other one is going to be a covert narcissist. That's where I started from. And actually that person can feel as an empath as well, because they really try to please others as well. But the big difference is that not just one person, it's like as many person as they can. And the other big difference is going to be that they get bored very easily. So if they don't receive as much back as they have given, there will be a breaking point that they are just like, okay, I don't care. And they can detach from the emotions, compared to the empath or the chaser, who it doesn't matter what happens, they just cannot get out of this loop. And now in the second part, I'm going to explain the internal experiences of this type of empath, this type of codependent, or the twin flame chaser, and that is actually the anxious preoccupied attachment type. And this type of person, the experience is going to be that it's like somebody takes your head away as soon as you are in the relationship, and all your focus, and that's the key, all your focus is on the relationship all the time. And even if the relationship stops, there is something, either you still keep focusing on the person all the time, or you are already trying to find another person because your main goal is to be always in a relationship, compared to this different type of that's a covert narcissist who focuses more on the self as well. So they are still interested in the relationship, but the difference is very different because they can focus on themselves as well. And okay, I'm going to focus on my career and I just don't care about relationship for a long time. So they are a little bit a mixture of the narcissist and the empath, and this type of runner, because this is the runner and this is the avoidant attachment type, is actually the mixture of the runner and the chaser, but predominantly the runner. And in the attachment type it's the avoidant, but the two types of avoidant is actually the fearful avoidant, or we call it the disorganized attachment type. And this type of the covert narcissist will be more connected because it's a more heady person, connected to the head. So the impulse control is different. That's why they can detach. They're just like, okay, I push my emotions down, compared to the empath or the twin flame chaser, who feels that I make the decision, but I can't execute. It's like driving a car, but you are sitting on the back seat. You have no control over what you want to do. It's like these inner energies, these inner forces are coming from you, some deep part of you, and they take you over, and you know what you want to do, but you cannot do that. It's like you are stuck and you can't. And that's why actually you have to be able to, because you are connected to the body, that's where the energies are. That's why you have to get connected to this more head type. So this can actually balance you. And when you feel that you don't have any power over yourself, you will be able to. And the other reason is there is a big difference between guys and girls as well. So it's not just the empath narcissist dynamic. I don't think it's enough. We have to add different factors to it as well. That first of all, a female has only a certain time to have a child, so they have to be more focused on, compared to a guy, to find that relatively perfect partner on time if they want to have children. And by the way, it's shame on science. They should have came up with something that we are not limited to time, because that is a huge pressure on females. Compared to guys who are just like, yeah, I can be chilled, even if I'm 70 years old, I can still have a child, no problems. So that is also something that you have to think about, that your own biology is messing with you. And also what we have passed down through thousands of years, that females completely depended on a guy. They couldn't have a career, they couldn't work on them, whatever they wanted. They were forced to marry someone in order to survive. So it's very similar to a child, that you have to have a person to bring food home, because otherwise you starve to death. And that's why, like the body is the child self, you are more connected to this codependent child self, that I depend on you. And anytime these things come up, just remind yourself that it's not just one thing, it's lots of things combined. And then society is still in a way that if you see a guy, their main goal is that you have to have a career, you have to have a good job, and that's your main goal. And if you are a female, your main goal is to get a guy and to have children. And that's why you see this duality, that if you see a 60-year-old guy who doesn't have children, never got married, never been in a long-term relationship, but has a lot of money, that's an additional, oh, he's a catch. Nobody is just good for him. He's a bachelor. But if you put exactly the same on a female, that she's even in her 40s and she has a great career but never had a long-term relationship or children, there is something wrong with her. Like even when very famous singers or actresses have all their lives together and they have like everything you could dream of, they're just not in a relationship. They get shamed and they get these questions like, why don't you have a child yet? Why aren't you married yet? What's wrong with you? But they don't do exactly the same with a guy. But there is another side to this, that if you are a female and you have absolutely no career, you can still say, I'm a mom. I have two or three, doesn't matter what number I say, 3 children. And it's accomplished. You are accomplished. But just imagine a guy who says, oh, I have no career, but I have 3 children. People would say, what's wrong with you? So you have to understand the difference between what is expected from different genders, and that is actually wrong. And then it's also reinforced in the movies we see over and over that if you are a guy, you should have lots of relationships with the most beautiful women, not the nice women who treat you nice. It's like that anybody would want. So you need a trophy. And for guys, it's basically get trophies, show how much you can earn. But for a female, any movie you watch is always going and searching for the true love, going for Prince Charming. So all of these things actually have a huge impact on you without even realizing it. So you have to really look into when something comes up, okay, and break it down. Where are these things are coming from? What do I really want? Is it the things that are coming from outside of me, or is it something that I really want, or I want it only because this is what has been taught to me that I should want it in order to be worthy, and this is how society classifies that a female or a male, and that is very crucial to be absolutely honest with you, and it takes a lot of self-analysis. And this is where you are very different. This is the third one from the narcissist. So a narcissist is going to be a more masculine version, and it can be a female as well. And the feminine version is the codependent empath, or the feminine is more the chaser, and then the runner is going to be more of a masculine. That what do you show to the external world? How many things you have? How many things you actually have that other would want? Because it's like a competition that you should get the best of everything, because otherwise you are not on the top of the hierarchy. And it's a very hierarchy based system. And the opposite of that is the feminine, that you just have to get that one person, and that's it. That's your whole goal. And that's exactly why, because these type of people, a runner type of person has to really focus on the external world. How many things others have, because I have to compete with them. I have to have more. And I have to have more and more attractive things in my life, is very different compared to a more feminine person who females were, they are not valued based on this. They are valued on what type of guy they can have. So in a sense, a female has this as well, that a trophy, and the trophy is that my husband or partner should be someone that others would want as well. So both of them have some toxicity in it, but it's, again, you have to remind yourself, it's coming from toxic society that we are all a part of. And when you become self-aware, you realize on a deeper level why you do what you do, and that's when you can stop it and start to see differently and rewire your brain. And in the fourth part, we have to understand these very two type of people. So a runner is going to be more head-based. That's the same with the narcissistic person as well, the covert narcissistic person, that it's more head type, and they're looking for similarities. And that's how they choose a partner. But the problem with that is on the head level, similars attract, but on the body level, actually opposites attract. And this is what the empath and the chaser is going for, this emotional fulfillment. Because this is the funny thing, that on the head level, when you agree, you feel good. So it's a feeling, it's a positive feeling. You feel it on the front of your body. And on the body level, the opposites attract, and it makes you stirred up, all of this chemistry, and it also makes you feel good. And the twist is that you need these two parts, the body and the mind, working together, because otherwise it's going to break apart. So a head type person is going to feel attracted to someone who is similar, same values, same race, same culture, same, and we love each other because we understand each other. But on the body level, there is no chemistry, so they become bored. And either they are going to leave the person, or what happens is that they become this typical family where the two people live together and they pay the bills and look after the children, but the relationship is completely dead. And the body type people are going to see things differently. Oh, I need this buzz, I need this chemistry, and it's very addictive. But on the head level, when you are opposite, that's going to get into argument, because on the head level you have to be similar, but you are not similar. And what happens is that the whole relationship becomes abusive, and you feel the whole thing as abuse. And this is how the system works, that whatever breaks you apart, the same thing is going to attract. So on the head level, opposites break apart, but on the body level, opposites actually attract, because that's the core rule of reality. And this is what you have to integrate. And this is your step 5, that you realize that this is the core rule, and you pay attention to all of these things that are different. So on the body level, you attract. So you know that, okay, we are opposites, and you try to allow the other person's perspective into it. You pay attention to what are those things that are coming up, because the person is able to trigger these old wounds up, and basically you become that child version of yourself, that you really crave that love, and you base your self-worth on the other person, how much the other person loves me. But you have to realize that you have to separate from yourself, from the other person. So you feel as you depend on how the other person treats you. But in reality, as soon as you understand why the person does what he or she does, and you see it from their perspective, that's how you can separate that. Okay, now I understand these things. What are these inner motivations? And I can see also my own things and see the two things realistically. And the head type person, the more narcissistic person, is going to be actually the opposite, that you are an extension of me. So the way you are, that's a reflection on me. So if the person changes and the person is not desirable anymore, not valuable anymore, that it means that my stock value in society goes down as well, because your stock value went down. And they have to understand, this is actually lots of parents, because this is actually the parent-child relationship, that recreation of that how your child turns out, it's not 100% reflection on you. and how your child looks, because parents are so into, oh, my child should be perfect looking, perfect grade, da, 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 da. But there is no real connection. So it's a very authoritarian, very conditional, the head type, and the body based is very unconditional. That's why it doesn't matter how many times you get hurt as an empath or chaser, you cannot stop the chase, because it's like, okay, I have to do more, I have to do more, I have to do more and more and more. And you have to realize, because this is something that I read in a very interesting book, and that it's an inner control, that's your own control. You just don't realize it, that the other person has let you down. And this is actually what your opposite gender parent did as well, and this is what you relive. But it's easier for you to punish yourself and push yourself because you have control over it, because you can push yourself, but you don't have control over the other person, and you are too afraid to face the reality that the other person doesn't love you, the other person has let you down, and it would cause you so much pain that you prefer to try and try and try and try, and you are stuck in this freaking loop, and you have to be able to stop it. And only way that you start to use your head. And the head person is going to be the opposite, that they are more afraid of going close to the other person, because their internal feeling is that the person will let me down. So they already decided that the other person is going to be a huge failure, and they're actually expecting that, okay, when it's going to happen, I know you are going to be a shitty partner, I just have to wait to see that I'm right. So both of you are in a loop, and you try to reinforce that belief that you made as a child. But in reality, the core is, because these are attachments, to override that attachment by separating yourself in a way that you understand the other person and you understand yourself as well. That if someone is a head person, that you are a separate person, you are an individual, because the body is more connected to the individual and the head is more connected to the collective and society. And it's okay to be different, it's okay to be at the end, it's okay, it doesn't really matter, because you deserve unconditional love as well. And at the very last part, this is the sixth one, I'm going to explain my internal experiences. Of course, it's not going to explain everyone's experiences, because we are all individuals and it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. But as I said, I started as someone who was in the covert narcissistic spectrum, and the internal experience was that I will be let down. That's one of the things, because there was no emotional connection with either of my parents. My father was never at home. He was a raging alcoholic, and honestly, just a total pollution on planet Earth. That's probably the best explanation of him. And my mother was an overly controlling, overly worrying, very, very, very cold person. And everything went in a way that, okay, you have to follow all the rules, be the best at school, very, very competitive mindset. So basically, a more masculine, I would say, version of how a child can turn out, that you compete and you should have a great career. So this is how I started, and I always even explain myself as that, yeah, I'm a girl in the body, but inside, that's how I felt, that I'm more like a guy. And all of my best friends, my closest friends, were guys. And because I felt that they could understand me, and I really didn't like girls. I had friends, but they weren't as close because I found them bitchy. In reality, they were, but I didn't really understand them. So I had always jobs as well that were very masculine jobs. I had a lot of guy colleagues, and I had very good relationship with them. And with relationships, because this is your key question, is that um I would say a head person is really focused on trying to push all the buttons. That's how I remember. And I instinctively knew what made the other person click and really put a lot of focus on that. And I also knew what's their biggest weakness, what would make them hurt. And I made 100% sure that I would never do that, so avoid that. But it was more of a safety guard for me. So if they would have hurt, so if someone hurt me, I didn't say anything, but when I felt like, okay, it's enough, then I knew exactly what their biggest weakness is, and like a snap. So it's not hurting them physically, it's like with words, and they were just like, I'm going to crush you and teach you a lesson not to do that. So basically this is passive aggression, because I didn't tell what my problem was directly. I did these sneaky things. Then in relationships, I went all over the top. That, okay, I do everything to make sure that the person is going to be with me, and I have the control over that. If I'm not satisfied, you will be kicked out. So kind of this is the mindset of it, to make it short. And that's why I think that's the love bombing phase. But also you have to understand that this type of person gets bored. That was my entering experience. I got very bored very easily of anyone, and if they turn up, like for example, like, this is silly, but it's also, you have to understand that when you are a teenager and in your early 20s, this is how you are going to be. You are going to go through this narcissism phase naturally, by the way. So as you grow and mature, you are going to be very different. That's why when you see teenager girls, they really dress up, they spend a lot of money on clothes, then the guys as well. And when you pass a 20-something-year-old guy, you can smell them like a mile away because they have so much perfume. So this is like also like a natural, normal self-development phase. And as we become older and older, we realize that this was silly, but you cannot learn without making mistakes. You have to make the mistake and learn it. So, and it's not really a mistake, it's like a self-development journey. And around my late 20s, late 20s, I just had enough, because I felt that was a returning thing, that I was in a relationship and my life was in a way that everything looked picture perfect from the outside, and I felt very lonely. And it just like started to eat me alive, and I felt that something was missing, and I was just so dissatisfied with my life, and I'm just like, fuck this shit. I'm sick of society, and I'm going to try to do things differently, because I was always focusing on what I'm wearing, what I'm saying, always to match every single rule to keep everyone happy. And I said, okay, I had enough. And that's when I started to change. And by the way, that's when, so I got connected with my anger. So anxiety takes you up, 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 and anger takes you down, 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 down. And I got actually moved closer to this more grandiose narcissistic, because they are this type of people who are arrogant, more arrogant. Because a covert narcissist is not going to tell you, it's more like a shy person. They would think, but they wouldn't say. But a grandiose narcissist makes sure that they show you that they are better than you. And it's more about the relationship is this push-pull, and in reality they are actually more emotional. So that's when I met my very first twin flame, and that's when I was still in the runner phase. And the relationship was very, very electric. And I remember I was so crazy about this guy, and I became very, very different. So my the way I dressed became very, very different, and the way I treated people became different. And it's like I pushed away people a lot easier compared to when I was pleasing people a lot more. And the relationship didn't work out, and I went through again like a lot of self-development, trying to understand. Like I was so hyper focused on the opposite gender to get as much information as I could to understand them. But my core goal was actually to understand them so I could control. So still the control was there, that I make sure that I'm going to be the best partner possible, so the other person wouldn't leave. So if I want to leave, I can leave, but the other person wouldn't, because I'm going to be the best he could find. And I made sure that I just learn every single freaking thing about that would make a relationship work. So I'm in charge, I'm in control. But that was a very silly thing. And that's when I met. And during this time, I realized two things. One of them was that I didn't see, actually three, that I had a huge inner control, and that feeling that something was missing is that I missed my own impulses. So I was disconnected basically from my body because there was this inner block within me, but I didn't know that. I only knew that when I crossed that barrier. Then another thing I recognized is that I actually was very, very intimidated by guys. I just didn't realize that. And listening to how they felt, what their insecurities were, that's when I really understood them. So instead of trying to understand, okay, what they like, what they think of, I really listened to why the relationships don't work, what their problem is, why they cheat, why this, why that, and really accept what they say. I put myself aside. And the last thing was that I recognized is that most of the people pretend to be someone they are not. And in reality, one of the biggest reasons they cheat is because that's when they can be who they are. But in the relationship, they are afraid of showing their true self. And I made this decision that in my next relationship, no matter what, I'm going to be crystal clear. I'm going to say everything straight away as soon as I feel it. I'm not going to fake anything. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm going to be exactly who I am. So there is no surprises, because if the person is staying with me, that person is going to stay with me instead of a person I am pretending to be. And that's when I met my second twin flame, where I had my first Kundalini awakening. And this is what the twin flame chaser is, and this is what the empath is, the anxious preoccupied is. And I already talked about how it feels that the relationship is the most important. And it was a huge difference, because anywhere else, I could put my work first, and I could put myself first. Maybe not in the beginning, but after a while there was like, okay, now I have done enough and I could go away. But in this version of myself, I couldn't. There was no off switch. And the integration was that I could actually integrate these different versions of myself, and it became balanced. So the attachment system, instead of being too much on this side or too much on that side, became in the middle. It doesn't mean that it's perfect. It means that as soon as I go a little bit out of balance, I can actually put myself back in the middle. I hope it gave you a better understanding. So this is what you can do to stop the chase, to really understand yourself, to think about where those things are coming from. Read about different attachment types, the 4 attachment types, and listen to people, how they feel. And listening means that you allow their internal experiences within you, because so many empaths say that they are an empath, but in reality, you don't allow the narcissist's internal experiences within you. So are you really an empath or not? Because that's what could actually really put you into balance, that you really understand how they feel, because their toxic behavior is actually self protection. And what you don't see, that from their perspective, your behavior is just as toxic. It's just, for you it's not, because that's what you got used to. And this is what the blind spot in both of you, that okay, if I'm doing it, that's a good one, but you both believe exactly the same thing. And again, the healthy is when you mix the two and you create a balance. And when you see other people who behave in that way, you actually have a better understanding where they are coming from. It doesn't mean that you are best friends, but you understand that, okay, this person is hurt and too unaware. I just leave that person alone because I can't do anything to change them. See you in my next video.